This is chapter 3, Electoral Politics. Overview of this chapter. In chapter 1 we have seen that in a democracy it is neither possible nor necessary for people to govern directly. The most common form of good democracy in our times is for the people to govern through their representatives. So we have seen for anyone to govern is not possible. Like simply they cannot go and rule on others. So there is a process. So in democracy, so the representatives will be there who will rule the state or govern the nation. So democracy it is neither possible nor necessary for the people to govern directly. Anyone cannot govern directly. The most common form of democracy in our times is for the people to govern through their representatives. In this chapter we will look at how these representatives are elected. We will see how the representatives are elected and how they come into the process where they rule. We begin by understanding why elections are necessary and useful in a democracy. We will also see why elections are necessary. So elections are there to choose the representative or to elect the representative, and it is very useful in a democracy because the representative is to be chosen by people. We try to understand how electoral competition among parties serves the people. We then go on to ask what makes an election democratic. The basic idea here is to distinguish democratic elections from non-democratic elections. We will also see what the differences between the democratic election and non-democratic elections. The rest of the chapter tries to assess elections in India in the light of this yardstick. So around this democracy and elections only the rest of the chapter will be revolving around. We take a look at each stage of elections from the drawing of boundaries of different constituencies to the declaration of results. At each stage we ask what should happen and what does happen in elections. So we will see the steps or stages of the elections. Towards the end of the chapter, we turn to an assessment of whether elections in India are free and fair. We will also see if elections in India is free and fair or not. Here we also examine the role of the Election Commission in ensuring free and fair elections, and what is the role of Election Commission also we will see for the free and fair election. So at the end of the chapter we will see the elections in the country, elections in India are free and fair, and how Election Commission ensures the free and fair election in India. So this was the overview. Now 3.1, why elections? Assembly election in Haryana. So some few things are given about the assembly election in Haryana. The time is after midnight. An expectant crowd sitting for the past 5 hours in a chowk of the town is waiting for its leader to come. So in the midnight a crowd was sitting. They were sitting for 5 hours for their leader to come. So they were sitting for around 7 p.m. and it was midnight. Still they were waiting for the leader to come. The organizers assure and reassure the crowd that he would be here any moment, and the organizers keep assuring the people or the crowd that the leader can be here any time, any moment he can come. The crowd stands up whenever a passing vehicle comes that way. So whenever a vehicle comes that way, crowd stands up to see if the leader has arrived. It arouses hopes that he has come. The leader is Mr. Devilal, Chief Minister of Haryana Sangharsh Samiti, who was to address a meeting in Karnal on Thursday night. The 76-year-old leader is a very busy man these days. His day starts at 8 am and ends at 11 pm. He had already addressed 9 election meetings since morning. So Devilal is a busy person. So he is leader of Haryana Sangharsh Samiti. So his day starts at 8 am and ends at 11 pm. He had already addressed 9 elections since morning. Means on that day he has addressed 9 election meetings. Not election, it is not meeting, election, it is election meeting. He has addressed 9 election meetings. been constantly addressing public meetings for the past 23 months and preparing for this election. Now the paragraph begins here. This newspaper report is about the state assembly election in Haryana in 1987. This newspaper report is about the state assembly election in Haryana in 1987. The state had been ruled by a Congress party led government since 1982. Chaudhry Devilal, then an opposition leader, led a movement called Nyaya Yudh, struggle for justice, and formed a new party, Lokdal. So Devilal, full name is Chaudhry Devilal. So he was in opposition in 1982. So he started a struggle for justice, Nyaya Yudh, and formed a new party and kept the name of the party as Lokdal. His party joined other opposition parties to form a front against the Congress in the election. So his party joined other opposition parties also to fight against Congress in the election. In the election campaign, Devilal said that if his party won the elections, his government would waive the loans of farmers and small businessmen. So Devilal made the promise. Devilal made the promise that if his party wins the election, he will waive off the loans of farmers and small businessmen. He promised that this would be an first action of his government, and also he assured that this will be the first work his government will do.
So, what is the meaning of waive the loans?
Means whoever will take the loan for suppose agriculture, farmer will take some loan. So he says no need to repay the loan, it is waived off. No need to pay the EMI. It is free.
Okay.
The people were unhappy.
Like no interest.
Yeah.
Like that only.
No interest. The people were unhappy with the existing government. With the existing government when at that time Congress was ruling. So people were unhappy with that government. They were also attracted by Devilal's promise, and they got attracted by Devilal's promise. So when elections were held, they voted overwhelmingly in favor of Devilal or in favor of Lokdal and its allies. Lokdal and its party won 76 out of 90 seats in the state assembly. So very big win, good win for Lokdal, Devilal's party. Lokdal alone won 60 seats and thus had a clear majority in the assembly. The Congress would win only 5 seats, and it was a big defeat, a huge defeat for Congress. Once the election results were announced, the sitting chief minister resigned. The newly elected members of Legislative Assembly MLA of Lokdal chose Devilal as their leader. So, after losing the election, the running CM resigned and new CM was to be brought up. So people or the leader of Lokdal, Devilal, people choose him, or the Legislative Assembly, members of Legislative Assembly choose Devilal.
Like the party members of Lokdal chose
who will be the
Chaudhry
CM.
Devilal.
So they choose Devilal to be the CM. The governor invited Devilal to be the new chief minister. 3 days after the election results were declared, he became the chief minister. So after 3 days of the election results, Devilal became chief minister of Haryana. As soon as he became the chief minister, his government issued a government order waiving the outstanding loans of small farmers, agricultural laborers and small businessmen. So he kept his words and he waived off the outstanding loan, whatever loan is balance, so waive off the farmer loans, agricultural laborers loans and small businessmen loans. His party ruled the state for 4 years. The next elections were held in 1991, but this time his party did not win popular support. In 1991, again his party election was held in 1991, but this time his party didn't win the popular support. The Congress won the election and formed the government. But in 1991, in next election, Congress won again, and Congress formed the government. Why do we need elections? Elections take place regularly in any democracy. There are more than 100 countries in the world in which elections take place to choose people's representatives. We also read the elections are held in many countries that are not democratic.
Sir,
Elections are held in countries
sir,
where democracy is not there also. Means in democratic countries elections are there, but in non-democratic countries also elections can be there. Yeah, Ankit, tell me.
sir,
But why do we need elections? Let us try to imagine a democracy without elections. So, can you think of democracy without elections? So, it is not possible because people will have to choose or elect someone as their representative. So, election is must in democracy. A rule of the people is possible without any election if all the people can sit together every day and take all the decisions. Otherwise, if there is no representative, everyone will have to sit, talk on few topics and have to decide on what to do, which is again impossible thing. For every day it is not possible. But as we have already seen in chapter 1, this is not possible in any large community. Nor is it possible for everyone to have the time and knowledge to take decisions on all matters. Therefore, in most democracies, people rule through their representatives. Therefore, in democracies or most democracies, people rule through their representatives. They choose their representatives to rule them. Is there a democratic way of selecting representatives without elections? Let us think of a place where representatives are selected on the basis of age and experience, or a place where they are chosen on the basis of education or knowledge. There could be some difficulty in deciding on who is more experienced or knowledgeable. But let us say the people can resolve these difficulties clearly. Such a place does not require elections. So, is there any democratic way of selecting representative without elections? The answer is no. So, democratic way of selecting representative is through elections. Let us think of a place where representatives are selected on the basis of age and experience. So, on the basis of age and experience also we cannot choose any representative. It has to be selected or elected by people by proper vote. Or a place where they are chosen on the basis of education or knowledge. On the basis of education and knowledge also representatives cannot be chosen. There could be some difficulty in deciding on who is more experienced or knowledgeable. So, there can be debate. Who is more experienced and who is having more knowledge can be debated. So, this is again not possible. But let us say the people can resolve these difficulties. Clearly, such a place does not require election. But can we call this place a democracy? How do we find out if the people like their representatives or not? Second question is, if we sit and together we form a government on the basis of who is educated or who is good, who is more experienced, or on the basis of the age. But again, the people will like their representative or not is the again second thing, or like their work or not, what he is going to do. So, how do we ensure that these representatives rule as per the wishes of the people? It is again uncertain that representative will rule on the wishes of the people. How to make sure that those who the people don't like do not remain their representatives? So, how will we ensure that people don't like the person? He should not be the representative. This requires a mechanism by which people can choose their representatives at regular intervals and change them if they wish to do so. This can only be made possible if people are allowed to choose their representative, and if representative doesn't work as per the people's wishes, then he should be replaced. Then in the next election, means people will not choose him, so he will be replaced in the next election. Therefore, elections are considered essential in our times for any representative democracy. So, therefore, elections are required. This mechanism is called elections. So, people can choose, and if they don't want, the representative can be replaced. So, in India it happens every 5 years. So, it is this mechanism is called election, where people choose their representatives. So, in an election the voters makes many choices. They can choose who will make laws for them. They can choose who will form the government and take major decisions. They can choose the party whose policies will guide the government and law making. So in the elections, voter decides or choose. They have choices to choose the one who see what they are choosing, what choices they have. They can choose who will make laws for them. So they are choosing the representatives who will be in future making laws for them. They can choose who will form the government and take major decisions. So they can take decision. The representatives can take decision on behalf of the state or nation. They can choose the party whose policies will guide government and law making. And people can choose the party. So elections are held and contested between parties, political parties. So they can choose the parties whose policies. So party will come up with the policies and manifestos. So they will see and decide what the party is going to do after the election. So based upon that, they will elect the representatives and whose policies will guide the government and law making. And as per their policies, they will be ruling. In other words, they will be ruling the nation or state. Next is what makes an election democratic. Elections can be held in many ways. All democratic countries hold elections. All democratic countries hold elections so that people can choose their representatives. But most non-democratic countries also hold some kind of elections. But most of the non-democratic countries also hold some kind of elections. How do we distinguish democratic elections from any other election? So how to distinguish between democratic from any other election? We have discussed this question briefly in chapter 1. We discussed many examples of countries where elections are held but they can't really be called democratic elections. So in some countries we have seen elections are held but we cannot call these elections democratic elections. Let us recall what we have learned there and start with a simple list of the minimum conditions of democratic elections. So we will have to recall what we have seen in the non-democratic election and we will see what are the simple list. A simple list we will prepare, we will see for the minimum conditions of a democratic election. So what is the first condition of democratic election? First, everyone should be able to choose. This means that everyone should have one vote and every vote should have equal value. So first thing is everyone should vote and everyone can vote only one and every vote should have equal value also. Second thing for democratic election is there should be something to choose from. So there should be something to choose from means some representatives should be there who will be contesting the election. Some parties will be there who will be contesting for the election. So parties and candidates should be free to contest elections and should offer some real choice to the voter. So parties and candidates should be free to contest election and voters should have choice between the contestant. Voters can choose the contestant as their representative. Third thing is the choice should be offered at regular intervals. Third thing is this election or choice should be offered or repeated in intervals. Election must be held regularly after few years. So in India we see elections after every 5 years. The fourth condition is the candidate preferred by the people should get elected and the means the majority, the party which has got the maximum vote should get the representative from that party should get elected. Fifth, election should be conducted in a free and fair manner where people can choose as they really wish and election should be conducted in free and fair manner. So without any foundation means people are free to choose their representatives. Whoever they want to vote, they can vote. This might look like very simple and easy conditions, but there are many countries where these are not fulfilled. So this might look easy, but in many countries all of these are not fulfilled also. In this chapter we will apply these conditions to the elections held in our own country to see if we can call these democratic elections. So we will see these points in the elections held in our own country, in India. So we can see and we can decide upon that we are having democratic elections. So it is said in this chapter we will apply these conditions to the elections held in our own country to see if we can call these democratic elections. So we all know India is a democratic country, so it should be there and the conditions should be fulfilled in the election. It is good to have political competition. Is it good to have political competition? Elections are thus all about political competition. This competition takes various forms. The most obvious form is the competition among political parties. So political parties contest elections. At the constituency level, it takes the form of competition among several candidates. If there is no competition, elections will become pointless. If there is no competition, then election will be pointless, because one person will come for the contest and he will win. So there should be more than two contestants. So there can be a healthy competition. But is it good to have political competition? Clearly, an electoral competition has many demerits. It creates a sense of disunity and factionalism in every locality. You would have heard of people complaining of party politics in your locality. Different political parties and leaders often level allegations against one another. So we have seen that it is common, people will put some allegations and they will blame, if the work is not done properly, on other parties. Parties and candidates often use dirty tricks to win elections. Some people say that this pressure to win electoral fight does not allow sensible long-term policies to be formulated. Some good people who may wish to serve the country do not enter this arena. They do not like the idea of being dragged into unhealthy competition. So if the competition is not healthy, decent people won't be willing to contest. Our constitution makers were aware of these problems, yet they opted for free competition in elections as the way to select our future leaders. They did so because this system works better in the long run. In an ideal world, all political leaders know what is good for the people and are motivated only by desire to serve them. So our leaders knew. So in an ideal world, all political leaders know what is good for the people and are motivated only by the desire to serve them. So how to make the people happy? By ruling them, by making them happy. Making them happy in the sense the people wishes will be fulfilled and they can be prosperous, they can grow. Both socially, economically, they can grow. Political competition is not necessary in such an ideal world. But that is not what happens in real life. Political leaders all over the world, like all other professionals, are motivated by a desire to advance their political careers. They want to remain in power to get power and position for themselves. So this can happen. Like people who is in power will be willing to be on power and to become more popular and to get more experience in their own political field. They may wish to serve the people as well, but it is risky to depend entirely on their sense of duty. Besides, even when they wish to serve the people, they may not know what is required to do so, or their ideas may not match what the people really want. There can be the conflict of thoughts. How do we deal with this real life situation? So how do we deal with this real life situation? One way is to try and improve the knowledge and character of political leaders. The other and more realistic way is to set up a system where political leaders are rewarded for serving the people and punished for not doing so. We can see how good the people are by knowing about them. Who decides this reward or punishment? The simple answer is the people. The people will decide the reward for the leader or punishment for the leader. This is what electoral competition does. Regular electoral competition provides incentives to political parties and leaders. They know that if they raise issues that people want to be raised, their popularity and chance of victory will increase in the next election. But if they fail to satisfy the voters with their work, they will not be able to win again. So the leaders know if they work as per the wishes of the people, they can win the next election, otherwise not. So if a political party is motivated only by desire to be in power, even then it will be forced to serve the people. This is a bit like the way market works. Even if a shopkeeper is interested only in his profit, he is forced to give good service to the customers. If he does not, the customer will go to some other shop. It is a comparison between a shop and the leaders. Leaders can't only do their duty in power, they have to serve the people also. They have to make the people happy. They will have to do the people work which are good for the society and people. If they does not, then people can choose other party in the next election. Similarly, political competition may cause divisions and some ugliness, but it finally helps to force political parties and leaders to serve the people.